Thank you for joining us at Tentatively Titled. Today we're talking about Kentucky Route Zero. Guys, you've all played through the whole thing, probably even several times. Um,
Mhm.
but why should people care about Kentucky Route Zero? Like it's got this great. It's a very simple story about a man trying to find this mysterious road,
Mhm.
and it's pretty straightforward to that respect, but there's like a lot of other things that happen in it. Scott, what were some of the things that you sort of picked up while you were playing it?
Well, the main thing that stood out to me was how it treated dialogue. And like there's this thought of dialogue choices where it's like the Mass Effect or Walking Dead sort of format where
Yeah.
you're picking a dialogue and that will change how the story unfolds. And I mean that makes sense for player choice, but Kentucky Route Zero takes a very different approach where you're making these dialogue choices and they don't necessarily have an impact on where the story is going, but they help flesh out the backstory for events and characters. Um, there's one instance where you first meet Shannon, the second character,
Hmm.
Mhm.
and she's on the phone having this conversation, and you're picking her responses to someone on the other line that you don't hear what they're saying, and you kind of are deciding what she's talking about on the phone based on how she's responding to this unknown person. And the options can kind of steer it towards like, is she talking about being evicted? Is she talking about breaking up with someone? Like, there are all these different things that it's not entirely clear, but you can kind of pick up on context clues and decide what is going on in the situation
Mhm.
that has already happened based on your dialogue choices. So it's kind of a retroactive thing, and I thought that was really cool and really well done.
Yeah, I think what's particularly interesting about that, and that's a good example of it, is that when you're picking those answers, like not only are you choosing, these arbitrary sentences for what she's going to say, but you also define what kind of character she is. Like, you can make her either be someone who's like a suffering victim who's being evicted, like you were saying, or you could make her be. I think one of the like a set of options makes her sound like she's really needy, and like she's demanding for money from her parents, and she can't imagine why they won't give her money. And I think that's kind of interesting because at that point, you've just met her. And,
Right, yeah, you this is the first time you meet her, you don't know anything about her character at all before this.
Well,
yeah,
this is the first, like, you're actually controlling her at this point. Like,
Yeah.
it's a very strange sort of moment because you've been controlling this Conway the whole rest of the time as you get to this point, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, there's this woman. You get to choose what she's going to be doing.
yeah. I thought actually at that point when it began, and I was a little disappointed that it didn't turn out that way. But I thought that once he arrived and she was on the phone, you were choosing her answers, that you were now going to be her.
Yeah, I had the exact same response to that, and it turns out to sort of be this weirdly dissonant moment because throughout the rest of the game, you are sort of painting out. Oh my god, what's his
Conway.
Conway?
Conway.
Yeah. You're painting out Conway's story, and then in this one random moment, you're painting Shannon's story and who she is.
Mm-hmm.
And there's that weird moment when they first meet. You're still controlling her dialogue for the first like few lines that they say together, and then it just kind of merges and switches without really any warning.
Right.
Yeah.
But it just flows really well. So you kind of don't notice that it's just switching between the characters all of a sudden.
Doing that sort of thing was when you're hacking into the computer,
Yeah.
when you're going in for password,
Yeah.
and you get like because it's an adventure game. It's sort of like a puzzle game, and you get. I got kind of anxious because like the guy's like, well, just feel it out, and I'm like, feel out what? If it's this poem, that's the password, but he doesn't give you any sort of guidance or any sort of clues to what this poem is supposed to be that is sort of password to get into the thing. And once again, like you sort of like one of the choices for the password is this sort of poem about a car accident that no one
Yeah.
saw. which is very telling about the story as well, which I also found in like many of the other dialogue choices, where you find like one bit of dialogue that sort of seems out of place, but is very telling to what everything else that's going on.
Yeah. And that's kind of interesting, I think, because again, with the same thing as when with Shannon, you decide what kind of character it is, or what kind of character she is. The interesting with all these choices is that, I don't know, it's like that's what I liked most about the game. The game is weird in that, although your choices of the narrative and the dialogue make no difference to the game, they actually make every difference to the game. Like, they define everything that happens, and the way that you come out of that game, like, if you could only play that game once, everybody would come out with this whole different story of what happened. Like,
well, actually, let me interject here. That's not entirely true. So I talked to Jake Elliott, I guess it was last week. We're running the interview next week, but I'll tell you now. I mean, I asked him about the choices in the game. I actually mentioned specifically at the very beginning, you know, you get that treat from the old man, and then you have the option of giving it to the dog, or holding it for later if you interact with the dog. I ended up holding it, expecting that, you know...
You'll need it for something else.
Yeah, it was still, like, coded for adventure game, like puzzles and doing things correctly. And I mentioned that to him, and he said, well, actually, you know, your choices do matter. I mean, things will... The game is keeping track, and things will carry over into subsequent episodes, which is why I've actually been hesitant to restart the game.
Oh, really?
Because every time I load it up, it asks me if I want to continue or do a new game. So it's like it's clearly saving it. And I mean, he told me straight up that yes, there will be elements that affect the game and the story more specifically in some very specific ways. I
guess one of the most obvious examples of that is the dog, since one of your first dialogue things is you getting to name the dog and choose its gender. It's either right. Like that can I don't know that whether it's a boy or girl dog will actually have an impact on the story later on, but it's just interesting that's in a dialogue choice. Just all of a sudden, oh yeah, my dog, her name is Blue or his name is Homer, and that is going to be something that choice is going to carry through. I don't know how big of an impact it will be, but I don't know. The whole game has this very dreamlike quality.
Oh yeah.
Where like I'm not really. I started off all adventure puzzle mindset, but it just kind of lulls you in so that or at least I kind of got rid of that thought process and just rolled with it.
Yeah, I think the first moment that hit me was so when you go into the basement and then you grab the glow-in-the-dark 20-sided die, and you go back to the table and obviously the people have disappeared, and that's the moment where you go, okay, that's kind of unusual. And then you go upstairs to talk to the guy, and he tells you to go back to the password, and you start to use the computer. And it was the significance of that line, which comes in the midst of other lines just like it, but when it says games isn't real, I just that's
I mean, there's like they give you a lot of that from the very get-go. Like there's the characters down there, and there's also the rules that you read on the plaque that's next to the die, where it's like why are there rules for basements?
Yeah.
Also, you are not real according to the computer.
Yeah, Conway isn't real.
Yeah, all of that was when I sort of had that moment where I kind of thought, okay, this is, I like where this is going, and then went off to start exploring. Did any of you look up the street names to realize it's actually a place?
No.
Oh, it's a real area in Kentucky.
Really? Oh wow.
Yeah. I was really enamored with the names of all the roads, and I thought there's no way one person can come up with such great names for all these areas. And I looked it up, and I guess I can check here where it is to tell you exactly, but it's just not far from Louisville, if I remember right.
Oh wow. Huh. Well, supposedly I think the guys who worked on it are both have been around Kentucky.
Yeah.
Which is one of the reasons why they sort of like set it into this area, the Kentucky Route Zero.
Well, one of the nearby locations is literally called Horse Cave, Kentucky.
Oh. Nice.
Yeah, let me see if I can find this area for you. Because once you go into Kentucky, because my first thought was, I mean, there has to be an I-65 there. So I went looking, and yes, there's Louisville's on it, and then
To go more into like the sort of the geographic and sort of the exploration of the thing. One of the things that sort of like came up like during the game was, I remember asking you guys when we started all this if you found the car accident.
yes,
Yeah.
And I've talked to several other people as well who have played this, and they never found they didn't find the car accident. And I actually started roaming the streets.
yeah,
Yeah.
I see how many other areas I could find, like the car accident.
Yeah, there are many.
Out there.
Did you find the airplane?
Yes.
Yeah.
That was cool.
That was so weird and cool. I don't know what that was about.
It's super weird, and it's also sort of weird because these sort of like side places, they don't have the same sort of structure as the rest of the game, because you go into the main areas and you'll get like an Act 1, Scene 1, Act 1, Scene 2, or whatever, and you go to these areas and it's just like when you go to the car accident, there's nothing. You're just at the car accident, and you show up there, and it's...
Then you talk to your dog.
You talk to your dog, and you see the bottles, but then there's also... Am I crazy? Are those coffins?
I thought they were coffins too, yeah.
Oh, right. I couldn't figure out what they were, and I was...
By the top of the screen?
There were like 3 coffins there.
That was where my gaminess was going crazy, because I wanted to like find something you could grab there, but like you were just kind of looking at it. And
I kept trying to click there, but you couldn't walk outside of the
outside of the light.
The pool of light,
yeah. And it's so weird, and one of the other themes that sort of like comes up over and over again as you're playing the game is death.
Yeah.
That people are dead and ghosts, and so it makes me feel like is Conway dead?
Yeah, that was where the Conway isn't real thing that made me go, something is going on here. That's not all as it seems.
Because there's the whole thing with Conway, and then like as he's returning the TV, one of the conversations is about his mother seeing ghosts within the TV.
Yeah.
And there's another conversation when you meet the girl at the cave, where it's...
Oh yeah, she says,
"Do
you believe in ghosts?"
Haunted.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really holding out hope that it's not a case of us all reading too deep into it and it'll just turn out to be something really silly. But
I don't think
again and again and again, like it's this imagery that just keeps popping up.
Yeah,
it's definitely a ghost story, but I'm not sure that Conway is the ghost, or I'm hoping that that's not the case.
You see, part of the twist, I think, is that when you arrive into this area where nothing seems as it is, and there's just been a car accident, and you've come in by car.
Right.
I mean, there's something there where, I mean, that was the alarm bells that I had immediately, where I thought, I mean, you're going to go navigate to somewhere that isn't accessible by normal roads and has to be accessed by, this disused portal that obviously you don't get to by the end of the first act.
Well, or do you? I mean, the first...
at the end you get to it.
Yeah, that's what it looks like at the very end.
Yeah, but what I mean is you don't get to actually
go into it.
Yeah,
you don't get to see what's on the other side.
Yeah, we know it's there now, but we can't play with it yet.
Right. We never hit the actual Kentucky Route Zero.
Yeah.
Until, I mean...
Episode 2, basically.
Yeah, episode 2. Well, supposedly. I mean, who knows what happens in that, the underground cave or whatnot as you're going through that.
Well, I thought the cave was Kentucky Route Zero, no?
The cave with that minecart thing?
No, at the very end.
At the very end, okay,
very end, yeah.
That's what I thought too. I think there's a sign right there that even says that has a 0 on it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we're all of agreement for that.
But I don't think there's any... Again and again they've said this is a magical realism story. This is a story with magical realism elements. So I don't really think there's any reading too deeply into it, since that's the sort of the purpose.
Right.
You're supposed to read into it. You're supposed to sort of ponder the meanings of things. And this game is certainly chock full of them.
Absolutely.
With the going back to the sort of side things you could find, what really struck me as I explored the map was the entirely text-based discoveries. The museum may be my favorite, but there were a few good ones that really had a lot of branching paths to them and a lot of elements, and they feel like a cross between Choose Your Own Adventure and Infocom Text Adventures.
Yeah, what were your favorite locations?
Well, certainly the museum.
Did you ever find anything there?
I don't think I saw the museum. What happened in the museum?
You go inside and you're presented with, you have the option of going inside. It's like a multiple choice thing. Then you get inside, you have the option of exploring down an open hallway or opening a glass door, but the glass door is closed, and then you can break the glass door. Mm-hmm. Eventually, you go through this whole museum, and you end up in a room. I think this was the museum. You end up in a room where there are people gathered around a fire.
Yes.
No,
then you just end up back at the
place.
Oh, that was a different place.
Yeah, that's the office that you go to.
Oh, that's the office. Yeah.
Oh, that's right.
Because it's weird how those text-based side stories go, because there's some, like, there's that office, and then there's also like a diner that you can go to where...
Yeah, the diner's really weird.
Where it takes you through this mini story, and then at the end of it, something happens, and then it takes you back to the road. But then there are other ones like the museum, and then there's also a church that...
The church is my favorite.
That you go in and you explore, but then you have to manually exit out again.
Yeah.
And so I kept wondering if there was something more in those other locations that I somehow wasn't reaching.
Yeah.
To get that final dream element.
Like you took like a wrong route or something like that. You should have taken a left when you took a right.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's funny about both those locations is that when you go to the church, and obviously you hear all the choral singing, and then Conway tries to get his way inside the church, and then you discover that there's nobody in the church, and it's just the stereo system.
Right.
And then I guess before or after, when you've been to the diner is this weird hill where everyone's sort of sitting in the dark, and you can't see anybody.
Yes.
And yeah, I mean, they're all sort of very bizarrely chilling in a completely harmless way. Like, obviously, I'm not see you, but you just get this weird, pervasive threat. I mean, like, whenever I discovered that the church was empty, it just made me go like, ugh, like that's a really weird idea. Why would you think to do that? And the diner is strange in its own way, I guess, because there's such a mix of characters there.
Yeah, like someone touches you when you're in the diner or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, when you go in, I think it says that you can see two men sitting, having a conversation, or they're playing a game.
They're playing checkers.
Yeah, because it's more game.
Again, games.
And then something happens. Does one of them ask you to turn the lights out, I think? And then the diner girl, or the diner woman, kind of gives you a menu, and then you sort of have this touching moment where she strokes your hand or something, and then suddenly you're out of it and back driving on the road.
Well, it actually ends with her touching your hand, and I forget exactly how it's phrased, but the intent is that your faces approach each other as if you're about to kiss.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's when it ends.
She moves in to kiss you, and then you say, "I'm sorry." And
no, you don't say anything. You
didn't say anything.
No.
She moves in closer to you. You move in closer to her. Then there's an M dash, and then you're back at the road.
Hang on, so you didn't get the bit where it said "I'm sorry"?
No.
No, is there?
Sorry. Oh my God! Hold on. Do we find another?
I got it because I got a bit. I played this last night, and I could have sworn I got the bit where he said.
I played it last night. I didn't.
He doesn't say anything explicitly, I think, but it says something like she moves towards you. I mean, the intent is obviously you're going to kiss or she's going to kiss you, and then it says something like you start to say "I'm sorry."
Oh wow!
And then it closes out.
This is the most mysterious text
Such an odd.
I've probably found in games in a while.
Yeah. I mean, I'll have to go back and take a look at it, but yeah, you should. See, I'm not even sure if the amount of things you can visit, outside of the main story, if there's any sort of rhyme or reason to that, where I mean, is there an order that you can visit things in that makes things change? Because I think I went to the church before I went to the diner, so if you want to try maybe in that particular order and see if it changes, but...
The only time that I found that there's an order was there's something with dragonflies, which I don't know if anyone found that.
I couldn't chase them down. I got to a point where it said you can hear them to the southeast. Then I went to the southeast and they were gone. Oh,
you just go a little bit farther to the right there on that road, and then you come to a house, and the dragonflies are all swarming around this house.
And what happens there?
You can't go into the house or anything. It's just like, what's going on? You come to this house, and that's it.
Wow, this is really creepy.
I mean, that's what
and maybe there's another thing that I missed that you can do after that, but that was just what I found, where you found the dragonflies, and then you keep going down the road, and you find another dragonfly thing, and then you keep going, and then there's this house where the dragonflies are congregating.
Yeah, that's what I mean is so weird about it. Like, it does feel really uncomfortable or something.
But like you said, it's not malicious.
It's just a benign discomfort. It's just very strange.
Yeah, it's just very weird in a way.
On the comfort level, changing gears a little bit,
sure.
In the mine, with the lantern.
Oh, yeah.
That is fun to play around with, because you obviously are gonna want to have the lantern on at first, just to see where you're going. But if you turn it off, all of a sudden these silhouettes start appearing in the background all around you.
Oh, I did not play with that.
I didn't see it until the second time that it was being played through. That bit was really odd, and I thought that's such an odd thing because I don't think that you would usually really consider that. Like I wouldn't have thought to do it. It was only by suggestion that I did. But you turn the lantern off, then you turn it on, and then you start to see little silhouettes of what looked to me like they were young children, all walking along the side of the minecart.
I thought they were just the ghosts of the miners that had been working.
The ones in the foreground, I remember thinking they had sort of limbo-esque heads, like that kind of like black and white silhouette, and the larger kind of childlike.
I mean, it could have been both. Like like she's telling the story of like her. She remembers like her and like a bunch of other children going down there, and and there was a band or something like that.
Yeah, and isn't she the one who's the miner's daughter? Is it her?
Yeah.
Or is it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, Shannon and Weaver are both miners' daughters, right?
Because they all talk about how the miners sort of the economy of the area.
Yeah, I think one of the last things that Shannon says to you in the game is she's telling you about her parents, about how her father would spend his mine credits on on air purifiers, and his wife would spend her credits on canaries, and they were both spending their credits on the same end result, but for very different things.
Yeah. It's almost like the more you talk about it, the more you talk about it, the less you want to talk about it, because you start reflecting more. It's hard to then want to move.
Well,
it's such a deep story within itself.
Well, it's also it's one
like
fifth of the story.
Yeah.
You know, like we're that's what I keep wondering as I play. Like how many of these things that I'm coming across, not just in the world, around the sort of main bits that you have to visit, but even the main bits, how much of that amounts to puzzle pieces that fit into a larger picture, and how much of that is just maybe red herring is the wrong way to put it, but how much of that is just sort of ambiance or coloring out the world around you in some way.
Right.
Yeah, because I mean, I don't know. I mean, if all those choices are, I mean, genuinely valuable, then the game is going to be absolutely huge, and it'll be impossible to take into account everything. Like if you think when you do that password sequence at the start, and you have 3 options, and each option then gives you 3 more options. So that's already a huge amount of permutations of what you could possibly choose for the outcome of that story. And I can't see how that would
I mean, going back to how you answer the phone call.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, how is that going to change her response, or is like something new going to happen in the next one because of the way that you answer the phone call?
Yeah, and what is good about it at least is that there's nothing that's overtly. I think Scott was saying about it being like Mass Effect. Like there's no overtly right or overtly wrong thing to say. You don't feel like you're making Conway the good or bad guy. At least not in a very dramatic way.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, I guess. Oh, there was one kind where you can kind of make him not bad guy, but like make something his fault. I guess.
What was that?
Where when you're doing the test with the PA speaker in the mine, at one point she says, "Tell me a story" for the test, and one of the options that he can for a story he can tell is about like him going with his boss Ira to fix a roof.
Yeah.
And through that story, one of the options comes to, we didn't make it there because there was a huge thunderstorm and we couldn't get there, or we didn't make it there because I was wasted. I got drunk the night before and overslept. And so it's like
right.
you can kind of make him, kind of give him that negative thing, which I guess if you want to read into it, him having that somewhat drinking issue tying into the whiskey truck crash. I don't know if that really does tie together because that anecdote is such a side thing that involves so many other choices along the way to get to.
Mm-hmm.
And so the whiskey truck is a more central thing, I feel like. But I don't know, it's interesting connections.
Yeah, I mean, and
I think you still have a point.
Go ahead.
Going into that, I mean, like we've been talking about sort of these side roads to find the different items, like the plane, the church, the office, and stuff like that. I mean, yeah, I think it's that exploration. It's that sort of going a little bit deeper. It's that playing this game like 3-4 times in order to find every nook and cranny that sort of like reveals something a little bit deeper that's going on.
Yeah, do we know when the next episode is coming?
He said, when I talked to him, I asked him about that. He's shooting to get the whole thing out before the end of this year. So he's aiming to have the last episode out in sort of mid-late fall. But you know, he also hedged that and said, "But look, you know, this is a game. It will develop at whatever pace it develops at."
So it's not finished yet.
No, I mean, I'm sure he has his story sketched out.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think the episodes are all done. I think he's working on episode 2 now, and when that's done, he'll release it, and then he'll work on episode 3. I mean, even this, he told me that he changed the ending somewhat after it was released. How soon after the game came out did you guys buy it?
Same day.
Same day?
Yeah.
So when you reached the end, it dropped into the tunnel, and you for a second thought that the game had broken, right?
I emailed the developer because I know him, and I'm like, hey, I think I found a bug. I think I was near the end, and then suddenly it quit to the desktop. He's like, no, that's how it ends.
Yeah, since the game was released, he's updated it, and now there's like an end that lets you know, oh, hey, that truck driving... I mean, I don't think it's text on the screen that says that, but there's some like element that signals, hey, this is over.
I think if
done.
I think if I remember right, it comes up end of Act 1.
Oh, okay.
But I can't be totally sure about that.
Yeah, I mean, I never updated it, so when I played through the very end again today, it just kicked me right back out to the desktop.
Mm. It's almost scary, though, when you think that if the game isn't finished, then, I mean, what kind of promise does that hold for the next 4 episodes? It's kind of like if everything's not already set in stone, how open to influence is it going to be? Like, but by us talking about it, are we necessarily going to change how it's going to happen?
Maybe we're changing how it's going to happen by having this conversation. And he hears it, and he's like, hey, that's a good idea.
I mean, probably it's a thing that has to do with like putting it all together. I mean, it's more than just a game that is about just sort of like the physical story, but it's also the look and sort of the transitions that you have going in. Like, it's a very like it has a very particular look, and it's very beautiful. Like what a lot of the stuff that they do with sort of revealing stuff, like when you turn on the TV for the first time, and the wall sort of separates, and you see the barn in the background, and everything just sort of zooms in, and then as you're zooming back out with the TV and the girl gone.
Yeah, I think the best bit for that was whenever you were. Is it when you come out of MARQUEZ's house and the bluegrass band?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
I love that. I really wanted that to be the end of the act, actually. Because as I was walking down and then the band took over, and the camera obviously pulls way back towards them, I thought that seemed like a much better time to sort of leave you waiting for the next act, because at that point it's seriously weird. Like,
but at the same time, it's also sort of fitting for a story that is sort of so unsettling, and I don't know. For me, it's I can't really describe why it's unsettling. They're just the atmosphere, the ambience. It feels unsettling.
Right.
So it's sort of fitting for the game to just very abruptly cut off, given that's the tone it exudes.
I had heard that mentioned similarly somewhere before, where they were saying that obviously where the whole game keeps focusing on this whole games aren't real theme that recurs, and then suddenly you go from playing the game to not playing the game. It just ends. Whether intentional or not, it's quite a nice touch.
No, completely. I mean, I think with sort of like the story that they're weaving, it would fit sort of the mood and the tone that they're sort of putting together, that you just sort of get kicked out, and it's like, well, that's it. There you go.
Yeah. Because I'd heard that he's looking to get them out every 3 months after this, so I don't know if that means we're going to be waiting. I mean, this came out just before Christmas, is that right?
No, this actually, I think it was scheduled before Christmas, but I think it came out during the same week as the announcement for the IGFs.
It came out, I thought it came out in January. I thought it came out this month, in January. Oh, that was this month.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Seems like forever ago.
It's only January, and I'm saying that was this month.
It was only January for a few more hours.
Yes, true.
Yes. For a bit longer. But yeah, I mean, it's a compelling story. I mean, for a part of, like, you don't know where some of this is going, and that the story that they do develop, that's solid, that's something you can hang on to, is so sort of like engrossing that you want to listen to these little stories, like the story about the mine, or figure out like what's happening to the woman, or even to figure out like what's happening to sort of like the first girl that you saw, who's trying to figure out like how you put your TV together. How about that other guy who was at the gas station?
The Joseph?
Yeah, no. Well, there's Joseph, but then if you leave the gas station and come back to the gas station, there's another guy there.
Oh, I didn't come back.
You didn't get back to the gas station?
No.
There's another guy. Let me see if I think it's Carrington. Carrington, and he's actually trying to put on a play.
Oh, I need to get that.
This is good, yeah.
And it is a play based on Death of the Hired Man by Robert Frost.
Oh my God.
And,
oh, come on, Death of the Hired Man.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Supposedly looking for this open air location as I'm driving around for him to put his stuff together.
Can someone explain to me the significance of Death of the Hired Man?
No.
Because Conway is a hired man.
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't know the play at all. So
he's a part of a movie, and let's talk about what do we know about Conway? What are the definites? We can
he has a dog.
Yeah. Well, not even necessarily, because you can choose at the start that he doesn't have a dog. It's just showed up.
That's true.
Oh yeah.
There are no definites. He claims he works for Lizette's antique shop.
Right. He has a truck, and he has something to go to. No, we have to remember the name of the address he needs. The one that we'll need him to go through the zero.
4 Dogwood Drive?
Dogwood Drive, that's it.
Dogwood Drive, yeah.
But there's also, like, he talks about his boss at one point, Ira.
Yeah, he talks about a boss, and I think it's implied that it's his wife is the Lisette that owns the antique shop.
Mm-hmm.
Which... I don't know, because when he's talking about his boss, Ira, he's talking about having, like, this roofing repair thing.
Right.
But then he's also working for the antique shop for his wife, I guess. And, I don't know, there's some anecdote about him having breakfast with her.
Yeah, and you can sort of decide what they had for breakfast and what they talked about and all that kind of thing.
Is that where you inferred that they're married from that? Or
Yeah, that's how
I never thought they were married. I just think
me neither.
She was a lady who looked after him because I guess they're two old people working in a company. I'm going to send you all a link, by the way, which is so good for a recording. But that is the that is where Dogwood Drive is, and also where Hammondsville Road is in Kentucky. So you can put together what you want there for that. But it's kind of fun to look around. It's weird when you look into the map then, and sort of these locations that you probably have learned from the game are real actual places, and that's never really alluded to.
Oh, wow.
They're actually a burning tree.
You know, I think I did notice on one of the roads that there was something like that.
Wasn't there also, like, a weird factory of some sort?
The artificial limb factory.
Yeah, that's it.
Which again was weird because nobody... I mean, you would expect then to be some sort of allusion to someone in the game having been missing a limb, but I don't remember anyone.
Give him a couple more episodes.
Yeah.
Yeah, true.
I remember that place.
Are you looking through the street names?
Oh, no.
Oh, okay. Alright, I get you.
I'm afraid to open my email and have GChat pings start coming into our call, so I will look at it after our call.
Sure. Well, it's interesting. I mean, it's funny because what's around there is, I mean, on I-65, I guess, not too far away from Hammondsville Road, there are 2 cemeteries. Two cemeteries, a school. I could have sworn I saw a place that did remind me of one of the, like, the Burning Bush thing. The Burning Bush was obviously a pretty interesting illusion, but now I can't find it anymore. I think I thought I found it earlier, but I don't have it here. But it's funny to look around, and I would like to compare side by side what is where on each road, and to see if they match up to real life or not.
So just to move forward, what do you think? What do you think is going to happen? Like, what? Okay, we're going to hit Kentucky Route Zero. Like, what is on the other side?
Well, I know from previews or interviews that we're definitely going to see a beached battleship populated by cats.
Yes. I
cannot wait to find that.
I think that was in their Kickstarter, because they ran a Kickstarter for this, and that was
right. That's where it came from, the Kickstarter.
It was there's the beached battleship populated by cats, and there's also supposedly a diner with a robot, stuck inside, and you have to go down into the basement in order to turn off the power to, turn off the security system so the robot can get out.
I almost feel like that, like if that happens, it will be just so much more gamey than this first act has been. I want it to be the anti-game experience. I'm really enjoying the fact that it's actually not something that I'm playing. It's something that I'm sort of wandering through.
Yeah, I mean, it is. I mean, we go into it and we're like, this is sort of like David Lynch, but it is very much David Lynch because it's somewhat familiar and then also slightly off, that it's unsettling.
Yeah. And
then once you do put in something that's fantastical, like, cat pirates, it becomes less, rooted in the reality that we're used to, or less rooted in that, and then it becomes something be like, oh, now it's just all silly, or none of this, you can't take any of this seriously.
Yeah, I mean that's my hope though, that it won't get to the point where it ever seems silly. At the moment, it doesn't seem silly to me at all. It just
No.
you know, and I don't want it to not take itself seriously. I like that they've gone for this path, and I think it would be a shame if they sold themselves short by doing that.
It'll be interesting to see how much of that stuff from the Kickstarter actually makes it into the game, because who knows? That was a while ago. Maybe his vision for the game has changed over time.
Yeah, and if you think that was talking about a diner, and then we've already seen a diner and had a story happen in one, it might almost be a little strange to go to another diner. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but how many of the people who played it actually found that diner?
True, but is that a good reason to have more diners?
I don't know. In the South, we have diners all over the place.
Oh, I know that's true.
And also, I'd be very interested to see what, since Adam brought it up, like what of my decisions actually transfers over to the next game. Like I thought, like once again, I was completely content with my dialogue choices just being something that reveals more story, more character that's going on there. But now looking back at it, now it's like, well, man, I should really hold on to that glow-in-the-dark die and see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, you have no inventory, right? You have a notes section, but no inventory.
Right.
Do you?
No, there's no inventory, so
Yeah.
you don't know. You don't actually get to keep track of what items you've held on to.
Yeah. So that's kind of...
You just sort of have to remember, I guess.
Yeah, but I mean, I guess the question at that point is, are you just remembering, or is the game also remembering? I mean, once you leave the basement, does that die continue to exist?
True. Or if you don't give the dog the treat, does that treat continue to exist?
Yeah.
Right, exactly. I mean, like the same thing, like I held off giving the dog the treat because I figured later on, like the dog would really need a treat instead of right then and there when I had the treat.
So did we all keep the treat, and did we all put the die on the table?
I did those the first time, and I did the opposite the second time.
I think it's really weird that you wouldn't give a dog a treat.
But you never know! Like, I tried to give him a treat later on.
I didn't think twice about it. As soon as I had a snack for Homer, I gave him a snack. Does anyone know the significance of the names Homer and Blue? Apart from the obvious one the two obvious ones, I guess, for Homer.
What was
Blue's Clues?
What's Blue?
Well, that's what I'm saying. I mean, is there anything for Blue?
Oh.
Blue's Clues?
Blue's Clues.
I mean, because Homer is either a really terrible thing, if it's like a Simpsons thing, which I really don't think it is, or else, you know, it can pertain to the Odyssey, which is an interesting way to be looking at the game.
I think that's a bit closer. Blue. I don't know.
Is Blue anything?
It's a common name.
Yeah. Did anyone pick the option where it's like, I just found this dog?
Yes, I did when I played it last night.
What happens then? Does it get a name?
He says the dog so there's Conway and Joseph, yeah. So Joseph says that the dog seems nice enough, and that he has, like, it just seems to play through the same thing. He says he still has jerky, and you can give it to the dog. I don't think you get the option to directly give it to the dog, but I could be wrong about that. You guys all talking about there being an option to do that shows me how single-minded I must have been when it came to, like, dog and treat. I obviously just did it without even thinking that there was any option to do anything otherwise.
Well, there isn't initially an option. When you come back out later and interact with the dog,
right?
That's when it gives you the option. It's not something you're automatically presented with.
You
can't miss it.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Maybe that's why I'm not thinking about it.
But if you don't give him a treat during that window, you can't give him a treat throughout the night.
Ever again.
Right. It never comes up again.
Yeah. Because I tried to give him a treat, like, after I left the house. I was like, oh, you're such a good dog. You stayed by the car. Here's the... Oh, can't do it.
I thought it was really interesting, actually, how... I don't know, how tender your moments with the dog can be.
Oh, yeah.
In the weirdness of all that's going around you, the dog's sort of this anchor to reality. I mean, everything's so weird, and after everything weird happens, you get touch base. You know, you go home and, like, you go to the dog and give him a pat.
You go to Homer.
And the two of you have this little not really an exchange, I guess, but
Well, it's kind of an exchange. It's sort of like you're saying. It's sort of like this reality check. Like he's touching base. Like he's sort of like trying to comprehend everything that's going on.
Yeah, and I think that's
or not, because some of the times you could confront things and be like, hey, I just met Weaver and she was really weird, or you could be like, hey, you have a fly on your hat, you silly dog, and it's just like there are these completely other.
Yeah, I opted
options.
for all the options that made me treat Homer most like I was just an old man with a dog. Like, I always just talked to him like he was a person and gave him a little pat and that kind of thing. But I think that's very good. It's a very good mechanic because with all the weirdness that's going on around you, I think it would be very easy to just get lost in the fantastical. And the way you keep getting brought back and encouraged to sort of do this thing, which, I mean, I'm sure you've all bonded with a dog at some point in your lives. So you get to have that sense of normalcy for a second, where you're kind of giving him a pat and giving him a treat or whatever, and talking about what was just weird, which always sets you back to zero, and then you go on to something weird to happen again.
Right. The dog with the hat.
It's a great idea. I don't know.
In itself is kind of weird to have as your basic, your anchor to reality.
Yeah, it's true.
Have this dog with a straw hat is the thing that makes you remember, oh yeah, everything is normal.
Well, no, like I said, like it's sort of like a reflection. It's like a moment where you can actually sort of, rest and reflect on what's going on.
Yeah, you both wear hats, right? Doesn't Conway wear a hat?
No.
Maybe.
I thought he did. I thought he had like a flat cap, like a driver's hat.
Maybe? I don't remember.
Maybe. Also, I thought it was interesting that the two opening characters are called Joseph and Conway. This little, just made me think of Joseph Conrad, I guess, which has had enough attention recently with Stack Up to the Line as well.
Right, of course.
Which is something I thought was interesting. What are your gaming reference points for it?
For me, it's the first thing I picked up on in the writing felt very much like old Sierra, old LucasArts, old Infocom games. It's just got that. It's much more the language that it uses in text, and not even just in the text only sections, but also in the graphical sections. It's much more descriptive language than you would typically see in a present-day video game. Video games nowadays, they're all about telling because they have all of these tools to work with. But in the 80s and even the early 90s, the tool set was much smaller, and it was words that were powering everything. And I definitely get that sense of respect being paid to the old school of adventure games, even though this isn't really the same sort of experience.
Yeah, I thought it felt really like Full Throttle, in particular. If you ever played it, I think.
Oh yeah, sure, I've played Full Throttle.
Just especially because it's all very well. I mean, not all of it, but particularly in the opening, it's all nighttime, and you're out on the road,
right?
And it's in a rural setting, and all the characters are these really, rich, bizarre, eccentric kind of people, which is all that you encounter when you're playing this. It reminded me of just like a different way of looking at Full Throttle.
I picked up a lot of newer ones, actually, looking at sort of the way that a lot of people are approaching adventure games more now as a way to sort of share stories and have people sort of explore this world. I was thinking about Swords and Sorcery.
Oh yeah?
Where you have a very particular look going into it. There's something there's bits and pieces of it that sort of go together, but then there's also pieces of it that sort of feel that take you out or make you feel a little off kilter because of what's going on. But it's a lot of it just wants to push you through this sort of fantastic story and just sort of enwrap you in it, and you just sort of get lost, just sort of exploring this world.
It actually reminded me of something, and this is probably completely unintentional from the developers, but away from adventure games, it actually reminded me a lot of Nier.
Mm.
I don't know if anyone else...
That Square Enix game?
Yeah.
Huh.
In the way that it handles story and characters and just odd anecdotes, I guess, would be the main thing. I don't know, something that struck me when I was playing Nier was how, I mean, it has also certain portions where it just suddenly turns into a text adventure. And that kind of reminded me of in Kentucky Route Zero how when you go to like the diner, it's all in text adventure form, not actually seeing any visual of it.
Yeah.
And just how it treats characters in that way kind of remind me of that. And I doubt that that's actually intentional, but connection. But that was just something that it reminded me of, probably because I just played that recently. But
I have no familiarity with Nier, so I can't venture on that. What about you guys?
You should become familiar with Nier.
A friend of mine loved it and constantly raves about it.
Yeah. I have it on my giant stack of games that I still need to get through.
You know that's like 2 or 3 years old, right?
I know.
I just got around to it finally at the end of last year, so yeah, I know that.
I got a lot of indie games to get through. I'm still plowing away at Don't Starve right now.
Oh, that's a cool one. I got into Terraria at the end of last year.
Oh, nice.
That like, oh my god, that ate so much time. And I just previewed it actually yesterday.
Oh, the Xbox?
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, it's supposed to come out soon, so.
Yeah, they said late February, early March.
God. They're gonna do that, and then they've already like started like dropping hints that they might update the PC version, so.
Yeah, they just no commented me on all of that because
yeah, I'm sure
505 just doesn't have the rights for it.
Really?
Yeah, they have the rights to the console game, but the PC version is wholly owned by Relogic and Spinks, Andrew Spinks.
So, Kentucky Route Zero.
Yeah, sorry.
Is there anything that we're missing from our discussion? We've talked about visuals, we've talked about story, we've talked about side stories, we've talked about places that we can go. Sound, I think, was amazing. Like you said, probably one of the really coolest parts is like pulling back from the house and listening to the band play.
Yeah.
They have a great soundtrack. Did you guys pick up the soundtrack to go along with it as well?
I got it.
Downloaded.
I got it, but I haven't looked into it yet.
It's really cool. Like it's a couple of songs from that band, and then a couple of songs like that are sort of more instrumental, a little bit more mysterious going into it. But it's really cool. I think they do a really good job of sort of being able to tell a story.
Is it all music that features in the game?
Yeah. I mean, there's a couple of other musical things. I mean, obviously, like the church.
Yeah.
Having to listen to the choir inside the church as you're trying to figure out who's in there or not.
Is the soundtrack version of that as warbled and muted as it is in the game, or is it the real song?
I think it's the real song. I'd have to go back to it.
Well, it does get clearer once you get inside.
Yeah, but it's never totally clear, right?
Right.
Yeah, it's true.
It sounds like it's coming through a recording device.
Yeah. Through a stereo. Yes. So what'll be interesting, I think, about this, if we keep this to a relatively good schedule, is that if the whole game, I guess, is meant to finish. You said, Adam, was it in October?
Yeah, he's shooting to have episode 5 out by the end of this year.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting, I think, to come back to it, at least 4 more times.
Yeah.
And sort of see, I don't know, just see how it pans out. I'm looking forward to seeing if what we've spoken about here, if any of it, comes to pass, if we're anywhere near correct on anything,
Or we see the next one, it's all just pirate cats.
That's the real fear. Or we could get the second one and it's not even, a similar kind of game. What if they do like 5 acts that are all just different kind of games?
Oh,
I mean,
God.
you can do that.
Kentucky Route Zero, the tower defense game, would be awful.
Yeah.
You know what? I'd still play it.
Just driving up and down 65. Yeah, it would be, I mean, it's unlikely, but we really don't have much of an idea of what could have happened.
So, one thing that I want to just mention, I don't know if it's really up, if we need to really go into depth discussing it, but I don't know if any of you checked out the README file that came with the game.
No, there's so much to go into.
Oh, jeez.
But it has all the typical stuff about like the controls and thanking people for the Kickstarter. But it has this one line: if you start to feel bored, just stay with that feeling. Really own it. And it says that literally in the README file for the game, and I just think that that's really emblematic of the entire experience of like how you feel. Like it's just really about sinking into whatever you're feeling while playing.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, all of us have spoken about how we felt, how we went into it, which sounds such a weird thing to say, but we all went into it expecting it to be a game and kind of had to readjust our perspective on it. I mean, whether that happened to you by the end or, on a second playthrough or whatever.
Here's a good question. What was the moment that tipped you off that, hey, I am not going to be solving puzzles in this game?
When I got the password right first time, which never happened to me in a
Password.
Yeah.
As
soon as I get that.
It's the password. I don't know. I mean, there's just after you pass through, getting through the house, because you really don't have to do anything when you get to the house. You go up, you get in, you do the thing, and then you go back down.
Yeah, I thought when I heard that there was no puzzles in it, and then you went down to the basement, and they asked you to find the die, my heart sank a little bit, because I thought, I was told this wasn't going to, be so game-focused, but it actually is a game.
It's weird how they pair that with that's like the most gamey moments in the game, and then right after that is the password, which is kind of the breakthrough. Oh, you're not actually solving things.
Yeah, you touched on a good point there, because it's interesting when you think about it that is the gamiest moment. It's also the moment where the only puzzle you're dealing with is about a game, and it's also about people who are playing games, and you're in a room with rules about games, and then after that you leave that to go to the computer where it tells you that everything isn't real except for exactly what you have to do. There's something there. I think it's pretty interesting.
And then it's saying everything isn't real except for the single guided path that you have to do, but then there's all this side stuff, like the entire game is side stuff that you can do around it, like the car crash we've thought is important, that you have to go the exact opposite direction that they want you to go when you leave the gas station. So it's interesting how it sets up these things where it's important to go the central path, but there's really so much more to do.
It's amazing, like how much they actually put into this experience, where if you do exactly what the game wants you to do, you would miss all of it.
Yeah.
Which is funny, because when I did my first playthrough, that's generally how I play through things. I always go the most straight line that I can.
Right.
To get through it, and then I come back to sort of appreciate it more. But it was funny that when playing that, because of the way the game works, and you're driving around the map, and little things just appear, you get pulled off course so easily and so quickly, especially because you don't know the thing that's showing up is what you're looking for anyway.
Right.
And I think that's what's great about it, because if you go into it with so objectively focused, as soon as you come out of that password bit and drive towards you're looking for the burning bush, I think at that point, you can run into so many other things that suddenly tell you that what you had in mind isn't really what's going on at all, That there's just so much else in the game, like it's not this single line. You're not just going to leave the gas station to go to MARQUEZ's house to go to Kentucky Route Zero,
Right.
Yeah.
I guess you don't agree.
No, I do. I just don't have anything to add really, just beyond. Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah. Well, I guess it looks like we've maybe bled ourselves dry. I'm sure we'll end this, and then we'll have all these great new ideas.
This is probably a good time to wrap up everything for Kentucky Route Zero that's out right now. I'm sure wherever we may post this, I will include a link for people to go download the game itself.
Yeah, it's by card.
I want to thank Adam, Scott, Chris. Thank you all for spending some time.
Yeah, it was great.
Playing, talking about a game. Hopefully, getting some other people, excited to go out there, and we'll come back and talk about an Epic game sometime.
Yeah.
And hopefully, a name for whatever we're doing.
Yes.
But for now, tentatively titled works.
Yep.
Yes.
By show 20, we'll have to do it.